And welcome to North Shore Live Cooper's Corner. As you heard, the most beautiful music by 5 wonderful musicians. This is the product of the Lake Forest Civic Orchestra in Lake Forest, Illinois. And this is just a little bit of the beautiful music that these wonderful musicians play when the orchestra is together. We have as our guest this evening, of course, the 5 Woodwinds, and we have musical director Robert Nording here as our guest. And we're going to talk just a little bit and congratulate Robert, because this is the winning orchestra that chose him over 3 other musical directors, and we're so pleased to have him. And welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Bev. It's a privilege to be here.
It is so exciting because you bring such life and vitality. And when I heard you, directing the orchestra, and it's a large orchestra.
It is.
And these are all volunteer.
Yeah, it's a remarkable resource for the community, by this community, that here's a group of people who are gifted players, many of them music educators, many of them from fields completely outside of music, but who can play their instruments. And they also are friends. They get together as friends, as community people, and make wonderful music together, and they're interested in working at it. This is the thing that also excites me about it. Not content to stay where we are. We're interested in working at this and making it something special. So I feel like I've won the lottery.
Well, really, we are honored to have you, and the Quintet, and I know they are honored to have you. They chose you. You are the chosen. There were 4. You are one of the 4 that was chosen as musical director, and you have a wonderful group. And I know that you say that they come from other dimensions in life, other professions, other occupations, which is true. And they're not paid for this. This they do out of the goodness of their heart and the love of music.
And the love of music. The word amateur, right? One who loves to do what they do.
Beautiful.
In that sense, it's a perfect description of what we do.
Beautiful. Well, if we'd like to continue this conversation, and we're going to do that, but if you would like to introduce your beautiful members and wonderful players and extraordinaire musical talent, we can have them be introduced, and then let them play.
Let's let them play something.
And that will be great.
That's much better than me talking, is them playing. I'm sure
for sure. Me too.
Well, these are the 5 principal players of the Woodwind section of the Lake Forest Civic Orchestra. Playing on clarinet, Scott Shapey, and on bassoon, Lorley Bielski, and on French horn, Adam Whiteman. Principal oboe, Chuck Emmons, and Melinda Vodek playing principal flute. And in an orchestra there are 2 or more of each of the woodwind players, and each of these guys takes the lead there, and they form a woodwind quintet. A woodwind quintet is a standard instrumentation. It's always a bassoon, a horn, a clarinet, a flute, and an oboe. And many, many composers have written pieces for this combination of instruments over the years. Yeah, over the years. It's what we would call chamber music for woodwinds.
I love it.
And you're going to play Lefebvre now, right? All right. They're going to play a couple of short movements that go right together by a French composer who lived at the turn of the 19th into the 20th century. It has all the wonderful feel of French music. It's celebrative, and it's a little bit humorous, it's sprightly, and this is just 2 short movements by a suite for woodwind quintet by French composer Charles Lefebvre.
Robert, that was beautiful.
Isn't that lovely?
That was beautiful.
Bravo, guys.
Very nice, very nice. How talented they are.
Yes, they are.
Very talented.
Talented and good looking.
And exquisitely good looking. And would they be playing in a period instrument, if they would be playing with period instruments?
Well, they're not playing with period instruments now. These are all modernly crafted
okay.
instruments, yeah. That's a specific area of music making and a specific approach to music making where some people would use, for instance, in Baroque music, they would use instruments made as, we don't really have too many Baroque instruments, these wind instruments, but they would be made to sound and constructed exactly like they would have been played back in 1720 or whatever. And because they make a very specific sound.
I know, I love
because
it.
you're trying at that point to reproduce the sound that the audience would have heard in 1725.
Wonderful, wonderful. Although, sometimes I feel like 1725, but the music, I may have been reincarnated because I love that music.
Yes.
I love the Baroque music.
Yes, me too.
The instruments that they have they been improved through the years, or is this just something that we would find like from the late 1920s, or I mean, have they been engineered better, structured better, made
all the time.
Metal-wise? I mean, these are all metal.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, it's actually a fascinating history to look at the art and science and engineering of musical instrument construction. The term woodwinds, we call these woodwinds, and there's an awful lot of metal that's up here, because at one point, all of them, with the exception of the French horn, would have been made of wood. And we have a very specific tone color because of that, a very specific sound. The holes to place fingers would be different. But as the technology, even in 1725, improved, they would want to extend the range of an instrument, and so at some point, the holes get too wide for your fingers to reach, so they added keys, so I could push a key down, which put an extended, metal key and gave me a larger range. And then they began to make them out of metal because it was a larger sound, a stronger sound when you got larger groups together.
Well, I could imagine, because the metal, the sound from blowing, the wind would reverberate, make a large sound. With the wood, it would absorb it, so it really wouldn't. Yeah. You wouldn't really hear too much of the. It would be a true sound.
Ask me to come back sometime.
Of course you will.
What we'll do is we'll do a demonstration of a wooden flute and a metal flute.
How exciting!
Or
that would be really exciting.
Or Melinda will do a demonstration.
That would be exciting.
I'll talk about it. But
okay,
but it would be fascinating to hear the difference between those, and you could actually hear the sound that Bach would have heard. When he wrote the second suite, for example, for flute.
That's outstanding.
That would be fun.
I mean, a drum. Okay, a drum is a drum. That doesn't go too far. But the woodwinds, from how they have been transposed from what they were to what they are.
Absolutely.
And of course, the piano.
That's a fascinating history. Absolutely.
And I just love the what is that called? The
harpsichord.
Harpsichord.
Yeah.
How delightful.
Yeah.
This is so light, so gay, so beautiful. So
and it's interesting, the piano, as we know it today, we call it a piano, is technically a percussion instrument because it's made of hammers that strike the keys. The harpsichord is a string instrument because it has plectrum that pluck the strings. So technically they're two different instruments, even though they're both keyboard instruments.
This is an education.
And so the development of the piano is an absolutely fascinating thing, and with Beethoven and then with the later Romantics, when they wanted more and more and more sound, it required greater and greater tension on the strings and larger instruments. Franz Liszt was said to have broken several pianos because he had just so much sound that had to use cast iron for the harp inside the piano, and so And we haven't even got into stringed instruments yet. We could talk
Oh,
about
I
the development of
know.
stringed instruments forever.
What they wouldn't have given to have amplifiers. I mean, the amplifiers would have been wonderful. You
Yeah.
know. The people who would have those huge horns because they
Sure.
couldn't hear
Sure.
would have blown their brains out because
Probably
the
so.
amplifier would have been just outstanding.
Well, this also comes back to the conversation we were having before about reproducing the sound that an audience would have heard
Yeah.
in the Baroque period. We can do that because we can use instruments that were made back then. But what we can't do is reproduce the audience from 17 to 25. You and I have heard a jet engine.
Oh yes.
We have heard jazz. We have heard opera with large. We have heard. We've heard huge sounds, and so we hear the world very differently than they would. I would say it was a quieter world, especially a quieter musical world, in 1750, and so the instruments made a more delicate sound. And the audiences, what would have been loud for their ears, may not have. I'm not sure we would be as overwhelmed by the fortes as they would.
Well, the consideration is when they were playing, were they grand halls or were they just large rooms that would have been able to sustain the music and the number of people that were sitting there?
Exactly. I mean, it would have been rare in Bach's time, for example, to have a grand hall. They were the performance halls of royalty,
Yeah.
who had an orchestra. They were churches, which could be grand, but they were usually smaller
Small.
groups of players. I mean, Bach probably never dealt with more than 16 or 20 singers. And so yeah, it's not until the 19th century where you start getting larger pieces of music written that required larger spaces and therefore larger concert halls, larger audiences, higher fees. You know, the whole the whole thing that go along with
The
it.
consideration is look at the tuba that is most large. That would require more area space and the sound coming out.
Yep.
You say there's always two. So if there's more of an instrument in the orchestra, does that make for a stronger sound or just a companion for the first?
That's a better way of putting it, because if you think of the strings sections in an orchestra, you know, a typical symphony orchestra might have between 8 and 15 or 16, usually even numbers, first violins, and that many again of second violins, all playing the same part, exactly the same notes. It's a section play. Violas, cellos, basses, the same thing. With woodwinds, they're all soloists. It's all one on a part.
They're all stars.
They're all superstars.
They're all superstars.
And so the first and the second flute player are playing independent parts. Sometimes they'll play the same note, but they're playing independent parts. So when a composer writes, for instance, for flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, there's 8 instruments, all voiced very, very carefully because there's 8 individual parts that are played. Now sometimes they're doubled, you know, if they want it, but it's the woodwinds are treated very differently than the strings would be.
They play beautifully. This is really so romantic, really, woodwinds. I mean, I do like the Baroque trumpeters when they trump. That's beautiful. I'm just fascinated with anything in Baroque music. But what we have here this evening is just as good, if not better, because it's in our lifetime and I'm hearing it and seeing it, and maybe we should hear some more.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we're going to be treated to some Beethoven now.
Okay.
Is that right? We're going to do a short dance movement, a minuet by Beethoven, who also loved this combination of instruments. Now this is going to be very different kind of music making than Lefebvre that we just listened to, than the French style. So see if we can enjoy Beethoven.
It's so refreshing hearing music of then played now,
Right.
than hearing what now is being played. They certainly wouldn't have understood it then. with
Well,
all-
yeah, exactly. It doesn't read back.
It doesn't go back.
As the
No,
computer
that's,
say.
that
But
will never work.
you raise a fascinating point, because we're hearing the thoughts of a person 175 years ago.
I know.
Isn't that a fascinating thing? It's this
It's
little time
outstanding.
machine
Yeah,
that
it
we get
is.
to travel on. We hear the thoughts, the intimate thoughts of a person.
Outstanding.
You know, played here, presented for us here, making it very, very contemporary in a sense, because we hear it, but yet relating to something that was old.
Yeah,
Music is a
Robert,
miracle.
This is
Music
the
just a
21st century. This is a miracle. Everything that we do today is a miracle, specifically with music and the arts and the languages. Outstanding. This is something that I think the young people of today are missing out on, because this is classical, this is enjoyable, this is makes you think instead of, makes you go deaf. I mean, the music of today, I'm wondering when my children are going to have to use hearing aids, because the music is really
Yeah.
outrageous, really outrageous.
Well, yes, I think we have to be careful of our ears, but even in major symphony orchestras, you'll see players with ear protection at certain points. But I'm going to push back a little bit on that, Bev, because the words that you used, outrageous, too loud, couldn't understand it, were precisely the words that they described for Beethoven. Precisely. When he premiered
Well,
his
I'm
seventh...
glad I'm in good hands. I mean, I told you I
That's
felt
right,
1772. This is,
when at the premiere of his Seventh Symphony, a critic...
maybe I'm related. I don't know.
Maybe you are. But some critic, whose name we forget, right,
Okay.
described his Seventh Symphony as a wounded dragon flying around looking for a place to die.
Oh, good.
And this is the Seventh Symphony. Well, we still play Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, thank you very much, and nobody remembers who that critic's name was. But there's always resistance to the new, and sometimes it's a good resistance. Sometimes we need to ask good questions and push back on ideas are not of value just because they're new, but they deserve a listen. And I think that's part of our job as artists, part of our job as musicians, is to walk out onto the edge of the ice a little bit and invite the audience, come on, try this with us. This will be fun. Maybe you won't like it, but maybe you will.
I don't see what there is not to like. It's beautiful. It's poetry. It's musical poetry. It's and you have such talented people playing. And so when the music is played appropriately by people who love what they do,
Right.
It just comes across so melodious. It's wonderful.
It does. You know, we've done so many children's concerts over the years, and it's absolutely fascinating to watch the reaction of little ones who have never seen a live orchestra play in front of them. And we get them as close as we can get them, sitting right here. And the concentration on their face to see this happening live and to hear these sounds.
You're there.
It's right. It's just fantastic. We did a concert just this summer at a music festival that I direct, and it was the same thing. We had a small orchestra, and about 75, 80 kids in the room. We played in a gymnasium, and we all walked in together and played something together, and then we had each of the instruments do a quick demonstration. So the flute player, just 60 seconds, and all the way around. And then the woodwinds played something, and then the strings did a demonstration, and then we played something all together again. And that look on their face.
I know.
You know, just seeing it live and hearing it live. It's remarkable.
Well, I think the younger you can get the student, the child, the person to understand the music, I think you've got them for life.
Yeah.
You've got them for life.
Absolutely.
Because if they enjoy it at that age, they will continue to enjoy it and perhaps participate and become a musician at some point.
Exactly right.
You know, anybody can do screeching into a microphone, or, you know, plug their ears up and just yell and you know, ballyhoo or whatever they're going to do. But to play a finely crafted instrument and play it correctly and have beautiful tones come out that we call music is a gift and is really outstanding. I'm so impressed with these 5 wonderful people that have taken their time to come here this evening and play this. Yeah. And of course you, of course, Robert, because you've got them in your orchestra, so we have to pat you on the back as well.
And we've got another 70 or so just like them.
I know, aren't they outstanding? I don't know if we could fit them. The studio is small, but they make a lot of beautiful music, and we would hope that people would come to see you. Now,
yes, please.
You've got an up-and-coming performance when?
We do, on September, help me out, September 27th, correct?
Yes.
4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
September 27th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the Gorton Performing Arts Center, right in Lake Forest. And we're going to do a really fun concert called Musical Stories. It'll be 3 pieces of music, each of which take the idea of telling a story differently. One is an overture by Beethoven that was written as incidental music for a play. And Beethoven, in the body of this music, sort of depicts the story of what happens. It's a story of Count von Egmont, the Dutch colonel who fought off the invading Spanish in 1546, I think. And he lost his head as a result of it. And all this storm and drang is all in there. Then we're going to do a piece by Ravel called the Mother Goose Suite. And he takes 5 movements, 4 of which are nursery rhymes that we know. Sleeping Beauty, Tom Thumb, Beauty and the Beast, and with humor and with grace, he tells these stories with the musical instruments. And then we'll close that concert with Sibelius' Symphony No. 2, which doesn't tell a non-musical story. Like, he's not telling us a story about something else, but he tells us a musical story, complete with a cast of characters, which are small musical motives that he introduces at the beginning. And then these characters begin to interact with each other and have conversation with each other, just musically. And then there's dark times where there's lots of conflict and we're not sure who's going to win, but at the end, everybody comes together like a wonderful Disney movie, and there's this great big triumphant chorale at the end, so it's worth it. So
nice.
3 different ways of telling musical stories.
And this will be September the 27th.
27th at 4 in the afternoon.
At 4 in the afternoon at the Gordon Center in Lake Forest.
Yes, ma'am.
Pardon me. Do we have to make reservations, or can we just come in as we normally do?
You can
get tickets at the door?
The tickets will be available at the door, absolutely.
Okay, that's going to be great. I'm anticipating already.
Good, please come. Please come.
Will.
I'll wave to you from the podium.
I
if you
do.
come,
Oh, Robert, I will. We, the longest timeline that I take between listening to music, as a matter of fact, music plays in the house perpetually. All the time, during the night, or we listen to the radio, to the classical music on 98.7 on the radio, and it's calming for the animals, for the birds, for the fish, for my plants that are growing, for everything, and they love it. It's calming, and at night when they sleep, the music is beautiful, and even during the day, the house cannot be, idle without having music being played. So I'm very much used to this. The kids growing up always used to this.
Right. Okay.
So everyone took a musical instrument, and not everybody applied themselves
That's all right. But
appropriately.
on behalf of conductors everywhere, thank you for doing that with your kids. We appreciate that.
But they appreciate the music. They might not play it terrifically.
That's
I think
all
we
right.
have one that still plays the oboe.
Very good.
Or clarinet, whichever I think Elizabeth chose. But she does play. So, and she was in the marching band. So
Fantastic.
Fantastic. And we're just delighted to have such classical music, such beautiful music, with such wonderful people, and certainly talented to be able to play this music that is hundreds of years old.
Absolutely.
To bring it with a fresh look to ears, new ears, young ears, and older ears. To enjoy.
And many of us hearing it for the very first time.
Well,
something that's written 200 years ago.
That's
We're
right.
hearing it for the very first time.
And I feel 200 years old, and I can tell you I've heard this before. So this is nothing new. So can we hear some more?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's. We're going to go back to France. Are we going to go back to France, back to Charles Lefebvre, and we're going to hear another movement, the finale movement, of this wonderful suite for Woodwind Quintet.
That was very refreshing sound.
It was, wasn't it? It's like sparkling
Yeah,
champagne.
it is. It is. It's
delightful.
beautiful. It's beautiful. Of the instruments that they play, the materials, we spoke a little bit before about materials. The flute that is being played, is that regulation size, or I've seen some that are smaller.
Right.
What is that the consideration of?
There would be a consistent size of this instrument. May I? Gosh, she's letting me hold her
How
instrument.
nice. How
There would be a
nice.
consistent size of instruments that would be a standard size. This would, and there would be a piccolo that would be half of its length that would sound an octave higher. They'd make different size flutes. An alto flute that would be a little bit larger, that has a little bit darker sound and adds some notes on the bottom. And then there are even some larger flutes than that. There's one that's double or triple the length of this. That's a bass
Really?
flute that Ravel, I think, uses in the Planets, and that has a very, very low, rich sound. But all flutes that you'd see in an orchestra would be this size.
And the
Quickly
type
take
of
it
metal, what is that composed of? What is that?
Is it a silver alloy? What's the metal? Yeah,
Silver.
it's a silver alloy.
Silver alloy.
There are some gold flutes that you'll see sometimes, and it has to do with the taste of the player, what color they want. You hear instrumentalists talk about sound using colors
Color?
a lot.
Okay.
You know, the sound color, and
Because there are trumpets that are silver in color. The most notable is gold.
or brass.
Brass.
Brass
Okay.
alloy.
And the music that comes from there, is that any different from the brass to the silver plating? Or?
If you asked the player, they would say yes. It would be tougher for an audience person to hear the difference, especially in the
Difference.
context of a full orchestra.
Yeah.
But everything affects tone. the composition of the instrument, of the material of the instrument affects
How is
tone. The size of the mouthpiece, whether it's a very small mouthpiece or a larger mouthpiece, or the length of the mouthpiece, how the valves are configured, who made the instrument. There's all different qualities of instruments as well, and that's just the instrument we're talking about. The big variable, of course, is whose hands it is.
Who's going to play it?
Who's going to play it?
Right.
So, yeah, there are probably an infinite number of variables.
Wow.
The symphony orchestra is one of the most complex inventions, I think, in human history, because there are so many possible variables of sound that affect the sound, and that's just talking musically. We can talk about relationally, politically, compositionally. There's so many different ways in an orchestra.
And is there a reason that woodwinds are placed in one location, and string and percussion? And why is that so? Why? What is that?
There's actually some variation in that. Most of the time, you will see strings across the front of the orchestra, and then woodwinds together in the middle. And there's a very specific format that they usually sit in the middle, and then brasses across the back. Sometimes in some European orchestras, they will switch certain strings from one side to the other. We usually have first and second violins to my left, first violins and then second violins, and then on the opposite side, cellos on the outside and violas on the inside. In Europe, they would do first violins and second violins on the opposite sides, because some composers write for conversations between first and second violins, so they would play back and forth, giving that stereophonic effect. But a lot of it is tradition. A lot of it has to do with acoustics, that to have the woodwinds be able to play in tune together and hear one another, it works best to have them as a block together. By and large, the compositions that are written require that they are in close proximity, so that they can voice the chords accurately and balance the chords correctly. And then the brasses usually make the loudest sound, so generally they're towards the back.
Is there a specified number of instruments that make up an orchestra or symphony? Is it considered a small symphony if it has 50, or a large symphony if it has 125? Or
it's a great question.
Why is what's the numerical there?
Yeah, there is no magic number. A full-sized modern major orchestra would have over 100 players. Now, they wouldn't always perform with over 100 players, but if you're doing a large romantic symphony, something by Mahler, by Bruckner, then you could very well have over 100 players on the stage, with 55 or 60 string players, and then woodwinds filling in the rest of those. So half of the numbers are going to be strings. But Beethoven, in his lifetime, probably never envisioned more than 50 players, even for his larger pieces.
Although it could be more.
Oh, we do it with more all the time now,
So?
for sure, because we're used to this larger sound. But the variables tend to be in the string sections, because again, you've got all these first violins all playing the same part. And you can do it with 6 first violins, or you can do it with 20 first violins. It's just how much of a large sound that you want to make. And conductors generally like to have nice, big, lush sound, at least at our disposal. Not to do Mozart. I prefer a smaller sound for the earlier classical music. But yes, that full, wonderful, rich sound that you can just sort of swim in.
Yeah. Turn up the volume. Mahler's Planets. I love that. The Planets.
Holst, the Planets. Holst, Gustav Holst. Yes.
Oh, the Planets.
Isn't
beautiful.
That a wonderful piece?
I love it.
Yeah.
Maybe because a portion of that is from the right stuff, that you see them walking down that hallway.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. And I will tell you that I did go to the Space and Aeronautics training center in Alabama, and it is everything that you would think, and then some.
Wow,
when
is that
you
right?
stand next to this huge rocket ship and says United States on it, just gives you a chill on your arm. I'm
Well,
telling
I
you.
remember sitting in my living room with my mother and dad with a little black and white television in June of 1969 and watching the Saturn V take off and watching the moon landing. I remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I remember as well in 1969 in July the 20th because my son was born. And everyone was watching TV, and I was having a baby.
And you were having a baby.
Somebody help me, please, here. I'm having a baby.
Be quiet, Mom. We're watching the moon landing.
Where is the doctor? Well, the doctor is in the cafeteria watching the moon landing. And I mean, although they say it's been done for millennia, having babies.
Not for
me. So I can very well tell you that was a very
memorable day.
Very memorable,
All
July
right.
the 20th, 1969. Yes, and when they walked on the moon, that's when he was born. 8:28 or 8:32 exactly.
Gosh.
And I said, oh my goodness, I'm lucky we got the doctor back in the room because,
one small step for man and one giant leap for Beth.
that's true, absolutely. And well, they were really very distressed that they didn't see that because here I was having a baby, and but it was a very momentous occasion.
It was indeed.
And there was nobody playing music like this for me.
Oh, gosh.
So, but I appreciate this music now.
Yeah,
Always,
yeah.
always. I'm just so enthralled. Truly, this is just. I cannot do it, but I can enjoy it, and I'm so pleased to hear this beautiful music.
Well, that's actually extremely important, what you just said, because music doesn't find its full flower of completion until it's heard. There's a line of thinking that says that piece of paper on Melinda's stand right there, that is not music. That's some cues on how to make music. That's some instructions on what to play. But the music happens in the instant when it's out in the air and it goes into your ears and into your mind and into your heart and into your soul. And so without that part happening, it's not a complete process. So please keep coming. Keep coming and help us do this music.
Absolutely.
So that it's sort of transmitting and reception at the same time.
When people hear this, you listen to this beautiful music, and remember, excuse me, September the 27th at the Gordon Center in Lake Forest, you can hear and be a part of a wonderful audience. Excuse me. There's the paperwork. It's the musical stories at the Gordon Center in Lake Forest at 4 o'clock. And come one, come all. And you can hear these 5 wonderful, talented musicians, as well as many others that will really light up the room. And the Gordon Center has been refurbished, and it's beautiful.
It really is.
Beautiful.
It's just lovely.
And
That's
so we're going to be hearing beautiful music.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait to hear what you are going to be conducting, and that's going to be outstanding, I know.
Well, we're working hard now. We've done a number of rehearsals so far and have several to go. And this is a challenging concert. These 3 pieces, especially the piece by Jean Sibelius, very, very challenging piece. It's challenging to learn and understand. For me, it's certainly challenging for the players to get their fingers around. And there are parts of it that are going to be challenging for audience too.
How is that?
Well,
We hear what we hear.
we do, but it's not all roses and sunrises and rainbows. Sometimes art makes us work. Sometimes art reminds us about things that are very sad. Sometimes art gives voice to grief in a way that is helpful to us.
Sure.
Sometimes art gives way to rage in a way that's appropriate.
Well, it's almost like therapy.
Well, exactly right. And all of that is in this piece of music. We're going to hear this in Sibelius. He rages at one point. He's as delicate as a stroke on your back of your hand at another point. And then big heroic celebration at the end. It really will push all of those limits of emotion.
Well, let's hear more. I can't. Let's just play these wonderful musicians. I'd like to take them home with me, and there's nowhere to plug them in. The radio will be playing that all night, but I know they have families to go to, so I won't keep you any longer than you have to. But if you'd like to perform another little piece, if you have, and then
Do you have another piece for us? Oh, are they playing out at this point, or?
Oh, well, whatever you'd like to do. If you'd like to play out with that. I'm sorry I caught them unaware. It's my mistake.
They have to learn to improvise, Bev. It's all right.
Okay. I do it all the time. But
Brilliant. That would be great. Okay. This is by the Austrian composer Franz Joseph Haydn, one of my favorite composers, and he wrote extensively for this instrument. This is a fast movement for Woodwind Quintet.
And before we end, because I think are we going to take this out with us? Okay, then we're going to. Let me again invite you all to come to the Gordon Center on September the 27th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to hear these wonderful musicians and other musicians in the Gordon Center play. And we will be hearing this music and other music to come. And have a wonderful evening, and I hope you all enjoyed this evening as much as I. And see you next week on North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. We want to thank the musical director, Robert Nording, for coming, and congratulations on your position.
Thank you, Bev. Thanks for having me.
And I know you're going to do a wonderful job.
Well, I hope so.
You've got wonderful people. Okay, let him take it away.